Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spectrum Talk. My name is Ruby Jones, and I'm excited to welcome you back to the final broadcast in this special live presentation. Brought to you by Denver Urban Spectrum. This program has featured the 2024 Democratic National Convention with live reports by Denver Urban Spectrum correspondent Tracy Winchester. As a reminder, Tracy is a Colorado Democratic delegate, and she's reporting live in Chicago from this historic event. Yesterday, she discussed some of the exciting events she's attended featuring themes of women's empowerment and joy, and she interviewed Karen Bigelow, Thornton, Colorado's mayor pro tem, along with Colorado State Representative Manny Rutinel and Colorado Democratic delegate Khadijah Haynes. Today, Tracy has returned with updates about the final day of the convention, and she's joined by former Colorado State Senator Polly Baca. Thank you once again, Tracy, for providing these important updates, and thank you so much, Polly, for joining us.
Be here. Thank you, Ruby. Before we get started, I just want to give a little bit of a brief background on Senator Baca. Senator Baca, as most of our audience will know, is an icon in Colorado politics, and she has been there for so many of our senators and mayors through the years. And just to give you some perspective, I was talking to Senator Baca earlier today about the fact that her first Democratic convention was in 1964, and she was one of the Bobby Kennedy delegates.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't a delegate. In 1964, I was Young Citizens for LBJ, and I worked for Bobby after that and went to the 1968 convention, having been on Bobby Kennedy's national campaign staff. And of course, by the convention, he had been assassinated, and I wasn't that far from him when it happened. So they were very kind to me and to staff generally. We all got guest passes.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Guest passes are key at this convention for sure.
Yes.
Still key in 2024. And for my perspective, my first convention was in 1976, which was the first time a woman gave a keynote address at the Democratic Convention, as well as the first African American to give a keynote address, and that was Congresswoman Barbara Jordan from Houston, Texas. And so that was my first time. And here we are 48 years later, getting ready to, well, we have nominated and we're waiting for Vice President Harris to accept the nomination as the first Black woman to run for the President of the United States on a Democratic ticket. We are overjoyed. This is a wonderful, wonderful day. And to show that type of joy, what the women are doing here at the convention is about 5,000 delegates, 4,700 to be exact. And we are all wearing white. The memo went out for all the women to wear white, and we heard from a lot of our male delegates that they want to wear white as well in support. And the reason for wearing the white, it comes from the women's suffrage movement, because it was in August of 1920, August 18th to be exact, that the constitutional amendment passed, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, that gave women the right to vote. So here we are, 100 plus years, 104, 103 years later, that we are now about on the precipice of electing a woman president after it took us
A long time.
long time to get the right to vote.
It's been a long journey, from the right to vote to the right to run for political office, the right to be elected, the right to have jobs that are uh, professional positions. It's been a long road.
And you were one of the pioneers as well. Were you not the first Latina in the state house for Colorado?
In the state senate.
In the state senate.
Yes, I was with, and at that time, I was the third woman, to be elected on the in the state senate at that time.
And that was in what year?
1978. I was elected.
1978.
But I was also thinking about 40 years ago,
Mhm.
in 1984 was when we nominated the first woman as a vice presidential candidate. And that's
Geraldine Ferraro.
Ferraro. And I was on the committee to notify her of her nomination as vice president of the United States.
And that was 1984.
I would say 40 years ago, 1984.
And then we didn't get our first woman vice president until 2020.
Exactly. It only took 35 years.
Only. So that's what we're doing here today, is really everything is all about the acceptance speech by Vice President Harris. Last night, we had a great acceptance speech by the governor, Tim Walsh, our governor of Minnesota, and he gave an excellent speech.
He is such an amazing person, the right partner for a woman running for president. Really, because he's very supportive, and that's what I like, is that he's going to be the kind of vice president that will support Kamala and be her right hand person. She made a good choice.
She made a great choice. Absolutely, I agree.
I agree with both of you. I agree with both of you. I'm just sitting here, we're astounded by the history both of you share in supporting that Democratic National Convention. And you're every 4 years being able to be out there and be involved. I think that's wonderful. I also think it's astounding that all of you pulled together to wear white today in honor of the women's suffrage movement. I appreciate both of your contributions, both locally here in Colorado and on the national stage as delegates, really showing up not only for women, but for the whole democratic process. So I think it's just wonderful. You said something about Converse sneakers too, though. You're not just in white, you're also repping some pretty cool shoes, right?
Yes. 4 years ago, when the vice president was running for president before the primaries, she was wearing Converse sneakers. That was sort of her signature comfort wear on the campaign trail. And so the women picked up on it, and men picked up on it. And so they're wearing that to honor her with the suffrage movement and the recognition of the fact that this is our moment in history, that we are able to have a woman accept the nomination, a woman of color. And it's really, is something that we want to pass down to our children and our children's children. The fact that we're still doing this in 2024, still doing the first, is amazing to me.
And I'm struck by the journey, because it's been now, 104 years since we passed the right for women to vote in the United States. But I was also thinking, this didn't happen overnight. We had some trials and errors, meaning that, well, not errors. They were first to get the nomination, but not get elected. As I mentioned earlier, Geraldine Ferraro, a white woman, was the first to get a nomination for vice president, but she didn't get elected. And then Hillary Clinton, another white woman, was the first to get the nomination for president, but she didn't get elected. But now we've got women of color, the first to get nominated. I think she's going to be the first to get elected. So this time, this year, 104 years later, I really believe we are actually going to get a woman elected, a woman of color elected president of the United States. So maybe it takes all of that energy, not only being a woman, but being a representative of people of color, the energy to make it happen.
And I think because she represents the working class. I mean, that's one of the things that Biden talked about in terms of, that he's one of us, one of the working class. Well, Kamala is absolutely one of the working class as well. I mean, she earned her money to get to college and to get through law school. And those are the things that people can relate to. It wasn't handed to you on a silver spoon. You had to earn it. You had to work for it. And I think people relate to that. You have to meet people where they are. And most of the people in this country are part of the working class, right? We are the union workers. We are the ones, we're the
That's right.
teachers, we're the police officers, we're the nurses. That's what makes up the body of our workforce. And so when you talk about that 1%, maybe is what, 3% of the multimillionaires in this country? I mean, it's really hard for people to relate to multimillionaires and billionaires. I mean, they would like to, but the fact is, most of us are here working every day, trying to raise our family and provide the best for our children and family members.
You know, and it occurs to me as a woman who has been involved in politics, I don't know how many times over the years when I was first getting started, questions were always asked about qualifications. You know,
Yeah.
we as women, somehow there wasn't this assumption that we were qualified, even now. So we've always had to be overqualified, super qualified in order to run for office or
Right.
to get elected. We now have a woman of color that is super qualified.
Super qualified.
There is no one in this country. I don't care, male, female, whatever. You know, there is no one in the country that has the qualifications of Kamala Harris to be elected president of the United States. She not only has been, you know, at the local level as a prosecutor, she has served in the United States session, the United States Senate as a legislator. She's been an administrator as an attorney general. So she's been an administrator and a legislator, and then
Prosecutor.
a prosecutor, and a president in waiting as vice president of the United States. There's no one else
No
that
one
can match.
else.
I don't care who it is. Not a single person in this country that can match her qualifications.
Absolutely.
So you better
No man or woman.
you better not say she's not qualified.
That's
Do
right.
not let me hear that.
And that's where we're going, Ruby, after this. I mean, this is the frosting on the cake tonight.
Yeah.
To hear the vice president accept the nomination. The real work begins tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going back home, coming back to Denver, coming back to Colorado, so that we can start knocking on doors, making those phone calls, and getting people to come out and vote. Because you can say how wonderful it is, but it's not going to happen unless we do the work and
Yes.
get people to say, you know what, this is the time to elect a woman to the presidency.
It's the time to make history. Every
Right.
single person out there, if you're of the age of 18, make sure you are registered to vote right now. Check your voter registration and then make plans to vote. We are graced with having mail-in ballots, so I always mail in my ballot. I think that's the safest way to go. But if you don't want to do that, go down to your local polling place. But as soon as you get that ballot, fill it out because they'll be counting them right away. You know, so fill it out and send it in. And I drop mine off at the city at the elections headquarters. You know, so let's do it. Let's all make sure our cousins, our children, our aunts, or whatever. You know, let's just make sure that everybody over the age of 18 that is a citizen is registered to vote and votes for Kamala Harris.
That's right. And call your mother, call your father, call
Yes.
your brothers, sisters, all those people who are still undecided. As
Oh.
Michelle Obama says, do something.
Yeah.
Do something to get the people out to register and vote for November 5th, by November 5th, so we can elect Kamala Harris.
It's everyone's
Absolutely.
responsibility. Every single one of us has that responsibility. It belongs to no one else. It belongs to each of us.
Absolutely. And again, I really appreciate the work that both of you do on a regular basis. It really speaks to the importance of never giving up, even when you talk about how long it's been since your first Democratic National Conventions for both of you and how many years you've been waiting, to see the nomination even of a woman. That fighting spirit, I feel like, in addition to the joy we talked about last night, Tracy, that fighting spirit and that refusal to give up is just such a huge theme for this year. So I'm looking forward to the work that comes next, and I appreciate how involved both of you will be in that work going forward. I know you said that tonight Kamala Harris will accept that nomination. Is there anything else that you know of that's planned for this evening, on the final evening, or is that just going to be the gut punch and then she's going to send you all home to start that fight?
Well, from an entertainment perspective, we do have Pink I saw her in rehearsal today earlier, so she will be performing. But rumor has it that Beyonce was in the building earlier. And so we don't know. That could be, I mean, rumors have been flying all week about Beyonce and Taylor Swift together coming out tonight on stage. But
Who knows?
who knows?
We're just,
Wow,
we
that
will
would be
report
something.
back.
Right.
But
Yeah.
watch your TV set. Watch that channel. And you can join in with us
Right.
as we celebrate Kamala Harris and women. Tonight we celebrate women all throughout the United States. It is our day. It is the day of the woman.
Yes.
We are
Wonderful.
women.
Yes, wonderful. Tracy, what was that?
Oh, I was just going to say, Senator Baca couldn't say it any better. I mean, this is what we're all feeling. We're all in our feelings with regards to how women are being honored at this moment in time. And we're just grateful. We're grateful to be a part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have been at every national Democratic convention since 1964. And the last time I felt this warmth and the love that is in this hall as we go forward to nominate Kamala Harris, the last time I felt that was 1964 when Bobby Kennedy was invited to speak at the convention after his brother John's death. And that night when he spoke, we were all had tears in our eyes. We were all crying. And that has been real this week as well. When Joe Biden turned the gavel over to Kamala, I mean, there were tears in the hall, tears of joy and admiration and anticipation. It is an incredibly historic convention. This is it. We are doing it.
Right. Absolutely.
I had that same emotional response last night with Governor Walz, and his family was just so supportive, and it was just really heartwarming. And so when you say that he's the right man to be there in office and support Harris if she is elected to president, I couldn't agree with you more. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for all of the correspondent work you've been doing over this last week. I really appreciate it, even with the delays and the protests and the in and the out. Like, what you're doing is wonderful. And thank you so much, Ms. Baca, for joining us and for sharing your perspective and for continuing to be a light to what we're doing here.
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Ruby, we'll see you on the other.
All right. And thank you all for tuning in to this special live presentation of Spectrum Talk. As a reminder, this presentation was brought to you by Denver Urban Spectrum, a legacy publication in Denver, Colorado, that has shared stories about people and communities of color since 1987. Be sure to subscribe to Denver Urban Spectrum's YouTube channel for more interviews and information, and visit denverurbanspectrum.com for news, events, and more. We hope that this live look at the 2024 DNC inspires you to get out there and vote and to activate your community in November. Take care.